The inside story on the issues that affect you and your community. This is Local 12 Newsmakers.
Good morning and welcome to Local 12 Newsmakers. The fundamental system of our symbol of our democracy is a good, clean, honest election. I am joined this morning by Jon Husted, the Ohio Secretary of State. In 2000, Mr. Husted was elected to the Ohio House of Representatives. 4 years later, he became the Speaker of the House, the youngest ever, served for 4 years, then elected to the State Senate before being elected Secretary of State. Welcome to Cincinnati. Welcome to Newsmakers. It's good to have you here. So you don't just oversee elections, and I want to recognize that. Your office is also responsible for a couple of other areas. I want to just sort of quickly summarize that so we don't.
Well, if you want to start a business, you got to start with our office, because we handle new business filings, and as a matter of fact, in 2012, we handled a record number of new business filings, the most in the state's history, and in 2013, we're ahead of the 2012 pace, so it's good to see that we have a lot of entrepreneurs beginning to do business in the state of Ohio.
Because that's where new jobs come from, as entrepreneurial
and that's where our salaries as public officials get paid from. When the economy's going well and people are at work and we're creating jobs, that means we have the revenue to provide the public services that
revenues go up faster than projected, and we end up with surplus. Oh, we won't get into that. Okay, let's start. My brother, who lives in Louisiana, was in town this past week, and he was berating me that voter fraud in Ohio, he was also throwing in Pennsylvania, but voter fraud in Ohio allowed Barack Obama to win the 2012 presidential election. What do you say to that?
Well, he couldn't be further from the truth. There was fraud that occurred in the election, but we have it narrowed down to less than 270 cases statewide that are actually being investigated. And in the president, Barack Obama won by over 200,000 votes. So it's really kind of one of those myths that's out there. But having said that, we take it seriously. Whether if there's one case, 270 cases, we got to take it seriously. And so one of the things that I did is I asked all of the boards of elections in all 88 counties to do an analysis after the election to investigate all substantiated claims of voter fraud. And there were about 650 irregularities reported. After they investigated, they found about 270 of them merited referral to local law enforcement for further investigation. We on our own, through my office and working with other states, discovered 20 cases of voters that voted in Ohio and in another state, including one voter who voted in person in Kentucky on election day and in Ohio on election day. So it does exist. It's not an epidemic, but we take it very seriously, and we do this for a reason. We want voters to know the vast majority. There were 5.6 million people that voted, and the vast majority of them did it the right way. There were a handful that didn't, and we want to send a message to both audiences. One, if you did it the right way, don't worry. Your vote's not going to be diluted by those who cheat, and for those who think about cheating or did cheat, we're going to catch you. We're going to hold you accountable. It's really not worth it.
There's a number of blogs out there went viral, particularly about Wood County in northwestern Ohio, includes Bowling Green, where there were more people registered than statistically, demographically, were of voting age in the county. And this was argued, and that this was, how could this have happened? And and President Obama won that county, and this must have been some sort of fix. What do you say to that?
Well, let's make sure we're dealing from the realm of facts. Yes, there were more people registered to vote than there were census-age adults in Wood County. Not more people that voted, more people that were registered. Wood County is the home to Bowling Green State University. The federal law says that you're unable to remove a voter until they've been inactive for 2 consecutive federal elections. So when people register for the last presidential race, they vote, they stay on the rolls. We asked the Justice Department to give us the authority to remove those voters from the rolls, or at least to give us guidance as to how to make sure that the system had integrity. The Justice Department refused our request to give us guidance on that. But the actual voter turnout in Wood County was somewhere around 63%. and none of those people who were registered to vote, there's any evidence that any of those people that were on the rolls that shouldn't have been actually cast a vote. And so we need it, but we have done our best to get the voter rolls cleaned up in Ohio. We've removed 231,000 deceased voters from the rolls. There were over 300,000 duplicate registrations that we had removed from the rolls. And we need to do that by making sure at the same time that we don't remove anybody who is legally registered to vote. We want to make it easy to vote and hard to cheat. The Wood County case is one of those that is a little bit of fact, a little bit of fiction, but the integrity of the election was not impacted because none of those people who shouldn't be on the rolls actually cast a ballot.
And we're going to get to your proposal to change the registration here in a minute. And I think that's because that'll help clean the rolls.
Yeah, we got to clean the rolls up.
And we'll talk about that in just a second. But one other area, there was also, and there has been ever since we adopted computerized voting, where in Ohio, or at least in Hamilton County, the system that we use, you mark a ballot, then you scan it. Do you have, as Secretary of State, Chief Elections Officer, have any concern that the counts can be tampered with through by outside forces, so that a person goes in and votes for, in this case, Romney, and it gets counted for Obama, or they voted for Obama and it gets counted for Romney? Can it be manipulated? Do you have any doubt that there's problems here?
I have confidence in our election system. Those machines have been operating for 8 to 10 years now. We've not had any problems with them. One thing that's important to know is that the machines are not networked. It's not networked into an overall vote total where someone can tamper it. There are individual counts that happen in each precinct. Those are verified by Republicans and Democrats. There's a verified paper trail that comes with it, a document that you can go back and look and verify.
And that's important to remind people, because there is a paper trail.
There is a paper trail so that we can always, if for some reason there was a problem with the technology, the paper trail we could go back to the paper trail and validate the count from that particular precinct. Those counts happen at the Hamilton County Board of Elections under the supervision of both Democrats and Republicans that are in the room, a check and balance on the system, and then the results of each individual precinct are added up and put into the overall total. It's not networked in any way where through one of these entry points you could corrupt the entire system.
We just had an election on Tuesday, which in a small city here in Hamilton County, it turned out to be a tie. Now that automatically gets recounted. When that recount happens, there's a lot of recounts that take place, not just in that particular case. I think it's anything within 0.5% is an automatic recount. Those are done off the paper ballots, right? Those recounts?
Those recounts happen where they run the same system.
They run the same system again, but they could check them against that paper.
And very rarely under the technology that we have today is the count of a recount any different than it is the first time around. Yeah. If there were provisional ballots cast, obviously those would be included in the vote total of that, and those would not be counted for 10 days after the election.
Now you have a proposal to change the way voters would be able to register to vote online. You'd be able to register online.
Registration. Not online voting, online registration.
Online registration.
So I always have to be clear about that.
Why? Why would you propose doing this?
Well, because it's easier for the voter to have access to the voting system. Because my goal here, make it easy to vote and hard to cheat. That's the goal of how we run our operations. You make it easy for voters to register online. They will have to put in all their name, their address, their date of birth, their address, as I mentioned, and then they have to put in either their last 4 digits, their social security number, or their driver's license number. Actually, we ask for both of them for the online registration, and then that's validated against the BMV database so that we can make sure that only Ohio registered voter or Ohioans are registering to vote and that they are legally allowed to do so. We can check that on an online system instantaneously. On a paper-based system, you write all these things down. They might show up 10 days before the deadline in a shoebox from somebody that's gone around and collecting them. And then they have to key them in. They can make mistakes there. It's costly. You have to hire people, so you save money. It's more accurate. It's instantaneous verification. It makes it more secure, more cost-effective, and provides the voter easier access. 19 states already do this. The reddest of the red states do it. The bluest of the blue states do it. There's bipartisan support across the country for this because it balances that easy access, making it hard to cheat through one system.
It's also tied into the driver's license.
The BMV database, yes, right. So that we know exactly who this person is, and that they do indeed have the legal authority to be registered to vote in Ohio. One
of the interesting things, and we just talked about Wood County, where there's all these extra people who have lived there at one point but never gotten themselves off the rolls because they graduated from Bowling Green and are out making millions of dollars and whatever they're doing. But this would not only in terms of initial registration, it would mean that people could easily update any move they've got or any change that they've got, which is always a big issue.
Yeah, and we have that piece available right now at myohiovote.com through the Secretary of State's website. If you've moved and you don't want to have to, and you want to vote in your neighborhood, you don't want to have to vote a provisional ballot, then you got to update your address, because we can try to design the best system in the world, but there's an element of personal responsibility that the voter must take to make sure we have the accurate information about them, so that on election day they don't have to go jump through a lot of hoops to validate who they are. If you want to make it easy, help us out. Go on there. If you've moved, update your address. We've had over 117,000 people do that already. That means 117,000 less provisional ballots that they might have had to cast because they weren't registered at the correct address.
Do you have any concern, have you gotten any pushback from people who say that poor people don't have access to the internet and therefore it's going to be difficult for them to use this system?
Well, you always hear that. Yeah, it's harder for poor people to do lots of things, but this system is not going to prevent them from using the old system. This is an enhancement to help people who want to use it have a greater convenience. You can still use the old paper-based system. We're not going to junk that. It's still going to be there. They can still use it. Still go to your local library or any of the other places that you could normally register to vote. But we want to enhance it so that we can create that accuracy, the savings, and the security that you can get through an online registration system.
You made reference to the fact that 19 states, and those are the ones that are bolded, and I don't know if we can get a close-up of this. I'm sorry I don't have it on a full screen, but it's bolded, and the 19 states, I'll tell you, the one thing that bothers me about this map is that you've split it red and blue. And the way I see this map, it's like, I think the signal is more blue states, therefore Democratic states, have already gone to this method than Republicans have. Why introduce that partisan
Well, it's
element?
only 11-8. It's a pretty fair split. And the reason for doing it is to show people that both Republican states and Democratic states, they're doing this. The reason I did it is actually to show it's not a partisan issue. You have both blue and red across the country doing this. Some of the most conservative states, they have online registration. Some of the most liberal states, from a voting point of view, have online registration. Ohio needs to catch up. We need to modernize. We're the most important swing state in the country, arguably. We need to have the first-class election system that the most important state in the country deserves. And so this is just part of it. We need to move in that direction. Modernize it. Be number one.
I'm almost out of time, but I noticed in reading about you that when you were in the legislature, you wanted to reform the way that the way district lines are drawn. This was a huge fight last year. It's an ongoing fight every 10 years.
Redistricting.
Redistricting. What do you have a clear proposal that you support on this? And are there any legs on this?
I sure do. I have a proposal, a bipartisan proposal. Right now, here's how it's drawn. you have a representative from a Republican from the legislature, a Democrat from the legislature, and whichever party wins the majority of the Secretary of State, Auditor, and Governor's offices essentially draws the lines.
Which is all Republican right now.
What happens is that you gerrymander the lines in a way that creates all of these safe Republican districts, all of these safe Democratic districts, and essentially whoever wins the primary, the election's over then, for the most part. And you multiply that times 49 other states, and you have what is the most dysfunctional democracy in the history of this country that we have right now. Because you send people that are from the political right and the political left, the far right and far left, to Washington, to your state capital, and you say, hey, work out the problems of the average Ohio and the average American. It's not working. It's a broken system. It has to be fixed. And I would like to see that system changed to have the governor, the auditor, the Secretary of State, 2 Democrats from the legislature, 2 Republicans for the legislature, require a 5-member supermajority vote to pass any plan that includes at least 1 vote from a member of the minority party. Meaning you have to have bipartisan compromise, and we build a system of guardrails around it to say, hey, they got to be compact, they got to be contiguous, you got to keep communities of interest together, and you got to make them competitive. And when you do that, you're going to have districts that best reflect the communities. You're going to have a lot of districts that won't be decided in the primary, because now we'll have to start talking to general election voters too, because these districts will be competitive enough that the voices of the average Ohioan will make the difference in these elections. But this gerrymandered system doesn't work.
Yes, and competitive elections bring more people out.
Competitive elections bring more people out. You force the issues to be discussed that matter to the average voter.
Thank you for being here this morning.
Thank you so much.
And good luck with this. And when you come back to Cincinnati, you're always welcome on Newsmakers. Welcome back. When disaster strikes, Americans know that the volunteers and the staff of the American Red Cross will be there to help. But the Red Cross not only wants to help people after disaster, it wants to help people prepare before an event as well. If you have 5 minutes warning that a tornado is bearing down on your neighborhood, is your family ready to take action? As part of the National Preparedness Month in September, the Red Cross and Hamilton County are teaming up to help you get ready. The Cincinnati chapter of the American Red Cross will kick off National Preparedness Month with Disaster Preparedness Fair on Saturday, August the 24th. To talk about that initiative, I am joined this morning by Patricia Mann Smitson, the Regional Chief Executive Officer of the American Red Cross, and Hamilton County Commissioner Todd Portune. Welcome to Newsmakers, both of you.
Thank you.
Everybody knows the Red Cross. Everybody has some sense of why, the Red Cross is just there when things happen, when fires happen to individual people, when tornadoes strike a community, it's just there. What's the role here? Because it's a partnership with Hamilton County. Todd, why Hamilton County is so involved in this part of it?
Well, Hamilton County also oversees and implements the County Emergency Management Agency, and we're the local branch of FEMA. People are generally familiar with FEMA. So County EMA manages and oversees and activates the emergency warning system, for example, when tornadoes are underway, the sirens that people hear, the weather sirens. We provide all manner of support services in terms of the aftermath of disaster recovery and relief. We're in partnership with the City of Cincinnati with the Regional Emergency Operations Center that is the major command center, excuse me, here in Hamilton County.
Which is an amazing place for people who haven't been in there.
Absolutely state-of-the-art in terms of being able to deliver those first responder services that are critical in times of a disaster.
Trish, from the Red Cross's point of view, what is your goal with, there's Preparedness Month in September, but you're kicking this off Saturday the 24th. What are you hoping that people do here?
Our goal is for people to be ready. As you said, the Red Cross is there if a disaster occurs, and we do respond, but we want to make sure that everyone in our community is ready to take care of themselves initially until they can get help from the government officials that are there to help them and from the Red Cross volunteers. So we want people to build a disaster kit. It's very simple, and we've got a simple 5-week program.
A simple 5-week program.
5 to get ready, but it's simple in that the items that you need in your disaster kit are really things that you either already have at home or you can pick up on a weekly grocery shopping trip.
So we've got a couple of disaster kits here, and so at the Preparedness Fair on the 24th, one of the things people will have a chance to do is actually figure out what they need in here. Is that right?
That's absolutely right. That we'll have the lists that will contain all the primary items that people should have stored away in an easy and accessible place in the event of a disaster where power might be out for any extended period of time. And of course we know that happens. Look back just to the windstorm in 2008 when power was out for as long as 10 days for a number of people.
Let's come back to that in a minute because I've got a personal story on that one. But there's the first aid kit.
Absolutely.
And this is something that people can get directly from
They can, or they can build their own. I mean, again, in 5 weeks, and we've broken it down into easy 5-week steps. We want to focus on food and water the first week, tools that you may need, like your can opener, extra keys, extra batteries, cell chargers, flashlights. Third week.
I have to ask, though, here's one coming up.
Very important. You need to make sure you're taking care of your pets and your children, your babies. So you need something to feed and more importantly, pet food.
Pet food.
Yes.
Okay.
Well, all of those products that we take for granted on a day-to-day basis, but if you have any major interruption in access to a grocery store or the delivery of goods into this region, most stores are only stocked for 3 days worth of foodstuffs and the like. So if there's interruption in that, you've got to have these things on hand in the individual household in order to survive. Something
like this, which is a mask in case there's...
well, it's for cleanup. You know, you may be...
Yeah, dust and
cleanup and
is this
debris.
Is this available in a grocery store situation?
And drugstores, they're readily available.
Hardware stores as well.
Yes.
Okay. Is there anything in the disaster kit, and I'm just sort of randomly pulling stuff out at this point, is there anything in these kits that is so unusual that people really need to know ahead of time?
Well, one thing that people wouldn't think about is what do you do during the downtime during a disaster? It's not all about cooking and eating and hygiene. There's going to be long periods of time where there's nothing going on. So we encourage people as well to make sure that you have some games or coloring books or just books in general for people to be able to read, things to occupy your time and attention during those long down hours while you're waiting for the power to come on.
You know, it's one thing to learn what needs to be in the kit, and that's certainly something everybody needs to know. But how do you get people to actually put the kit together? I mean, yeah, everybody can remember when that windstorm came through and it was like, I have got to be more prepared the next time through. But, you know, how many of us really did it?
Well, we really want this to be a call to action. That's why we have our disaster fair to kick it off, and we're trying to get the word out because disasters do happen, and they happen in our community. Over the last 50, 60 years, it's hundreds of tornadoes have hit our community.
Oh, yeah.
And ice storms, and fortunately we haven't had hurricanes come through. We do have earthquakes, we've had flooding. We have many, many things that people don't think about, and we need to be ready. This is the chance to get it top of mind for people to go build their kit and take charge and make sure that they're as prepared as they can be.
And Dan, the way to do it too is you've got to have a campaign where the community gets behind it. And we're very grateful to Channel 12 and Newsmakers and you for hosting this program today to get the word out. But this is a 5-week campaign, so every week we're going to keep this alive and fresh in people's minds, and so hopefully this is not just a one-time shot where people think about it and then they forget about it. So over the 5 weeks, if we keep the pressure on, if you will, keep the public notice out there, we're going to encourage people to do this.
Every week there would be suggestions about something different you could pick up at the store that may even be, they're close to each other.
Correct.
So anyway, I have to say that in that windstorm, what we came away with, because my wife panicked about coffee, she doesn't function without coffee, so we went out and bought a little stove that's propane.
Wow,
so that we can make sure that we can do that. So I want to make sure people know how to get to this preparedness fair, because that's the disaster fair, because that's the beginning. If you want to get started assembling your family's disaster kit, you can attend the disaster fair at the Cincinnati Red Cross building, which sits right alongside I-71 and is accessed from Dana Avenue. Next Saturday, August the 24th, between 10 in the morning and 2 in the afternoon. And can people just show up?
They can show up, and it's going to be fun. We've got lots of activities for kids. We have lots of vendors, exhibitors.
And it doesn't take 4 hours.
It doesn't take 4 hours. No. Just come by for 30 minutes.
And I have to say, if people have not yet, everybody has seen that your new building, but if you haven't had a chance to be in that new building, this is a great reason to be there.
People are going to see there as well, Dan, many of the major pieces of equipment that have been purchased by this region since 9/11 in terms of Homeland Security dollars as well. All your command centers and all that sort of thing.
Okay. Thank you for making Newsmakers part of your Sunday morning, and have a good week and a safe week. Thank you.